Hey everybody, and welcome to the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. I know I haven't put out any videos for quite a while, but there's a good reason for that, I assure you, and we'll talk all about it on today's video. So part of the reason is because of this, okay? I upgraded everything within the past year, and I'll just say this. If you do all the marginal gains at once, they turn into maximal gains. So, for those of you who are familiar with the channel, yeah, I've been a bike racer for let's say a long time. And things got very different last December because I did a massive bike upgrade. And by April, I did a massive instrument upgrade. I have a power meter, I have electronic shifting, I have carbon wheels and bike, I have, I use a heart rate monitor now, and I did a couple little tweaks with the training and so on. And let's just say that made a huge difference in things. So that caused me to, I almost went to the national championships. It was all planned. I even had the hotel room booked. But due to illness, I decided to call that off because my numbers turned to crap. So, but I digress. Anyway, we're back to the space weather. We're showing 3-day videos here because we haven't put out any space weather for quite a while. And just a little bit more about the channel here while let's switch to, let's zoom in a little bit. There we go. You'll see the Halloween X2 flare is on that video. And so basically, folks, what happened in July is massive burnout. Massive burnout on the videos. We used to do them early in the morning. Then we switched to the evening format. And basically what that did is that took up a huge amount of my time at about 4 p.m. every afternoon. And whether it comes to content creation burnout or work burnout or athletic burnout, any kind of burnout, folks, when you just completely lose it, you have like a breakdown where it's just a massive chore. It's not fun, and it's a mess, especially when it's not paying off. If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense, and the channel certainly don't make dollars. So yeah, that's, if you knew what our operating loss was the past 6 years, you would be astounded. So anyway, again, so we're kind of back, and look, part of the reason this video is coming out is because I told you so. All right? Yeah, I told you so. And what I mean by that is I told you that solar maximum would show up in October of 2024. Did I not? So it's looking increasingly likely that we've already seen solar maximum and that we're slightly past it. We'll talk about that for a minute here. But first, let's talk about another interesting little feature here, because this feature is inversely proportional to solar activity. So cosmic ray flux, folks, guess what? It's at an over 30-year low now. We haven't seen levels of cosmic ray flux this low since 1991. Okay? Now that's an indication that we might see a lot of solar activity here. Look at that graph. I mean, look, if you're trying to figure out why the world's going to end, why the apocalypse is going to happen, this graph does not help, because lots of people are frightened of cosmic ray flux, and there it is. Lowest levels since 1991, according to the OLU neutron monitor. So this is one of the most trusted neutron monitors in the world, dating all the way back to the 1960s. Probably not erroneous data. I won't worry about showing the rest of the neutron monitors. But anyway, thanks everybody for tuning back in to the Smash News Network, least busted name of news. By the way, we'll have the Twitch stream up again soon, and thanks for tuning in to the Twitch stream there and leaving comments. 990, who, also apprised me of some interesting developments with new spacecraft, which we'll briefly talk about that as well. Yeah, so some CMEs are on the way. And this video will look a bit like the daily space weather videos of times past. So radio flux is nothing special right now. It's at about 258, something like that, 258. And let's look at the solar cycles here, because again, looks like we may have seen solar maximum. All right, now you can see the way this cycle is already kind of dwarfing solar cycle 24. That's the progression going back to the year 1900 approximately. Don't be surprised if we see this cycle just a little bit smaller than solar cycle 23. That's what it looks like. There were some guesses that it might even be a stronger cycle than 23, but probably not. So it's probably going to be a little weaker than 23, but a lot stronger than 24, not even close. So here's a radio flux, and that's just for solar cycle 25 there. That's the 10.7 centimeter radio flux. And as you can see there, we just recently saw the highest levels of both that and the sunspot number at the same time, and we haven't seen levels that high since. Now, we are also seeing high latitude sunspots and so forth. Not too worried about the incoming space weather. There is some minor stuff likely on the way here. That's ESA's forecast. Why isn't it playing? There we go. There's ESA's forecast, expecting some coronal mass ejection impact stuff. It's looking like it's low speed. Could be some good density there, so we might see a short impact there with some mild geomagnetic storming. Nothing major will be likely there, showing up midday on the 4th of November. So there's ESA's model. Here's NOAA's model, and NOAA's putting it a little bit earlier there. So minor CME impact likely on the way. Here's what's going on in the magnetosphere, and things are geomagnetically calm at the moment. That's our Geospace Magnetosphere movie, based on the University of Michigan's Geospace model, the space weather modeling framework, a V2.0. This depicts magnetohydrodynamic pressure. The units you're seeing there are in nanopascals. Here's the ground level magnetic perturbations map. And yeah, it's very normal conditions. Space weather is mild. We did have a brief period of geomagnetic unrest there, lasting about 3 hours or so in the past 24 hours. No big deal. Solar wind is nominal right now. Very nominal. A little bit on the high speed side. So here's our heliosphere. This is depicting the magnetism of the solar plasma there, and you can see a sector boundary crossing about to occur. Some variations happening over there on the east side, so we may see some sunspots either grow or go away depending on what the polarity's doing there. I mean, I don't know. I haven't looked too closely at it here. It's not really too big of a concern. Once again, if you're looking for the world to end, we're not going to show you anything in this video that's spooky in any way. Space weather, not scary. Space, not scary. The sun, not scary. It is the provider of all life and energy on the planet in many ways, so not really too scary. So yeah, there's our line of sight field plot. Solar B field there depicted in blue. Polar fields in red for south and green for north. As you can see, the South Pole magnetism there consolidating at the North Polar region. Here's our coronal hole view. And yeah, that's pretty much as per the forecast there. So lots of North Pole-oriented coronal holes. We're going to see North Pole-oriented coronal holes here for the next year or two. They should be pretty common around the equatorial regions, as we're seeing now. And then, we expect to see quite a few sunspots in the northern hemisphere as well. So we've had a sort of a disparity in South Pole versus North Pole sunspots throughout cycle 25. And here's the past month of sunspot number there. And we're just over 200 sunspots right now, according to Rob, the Royal Observatory of Belgium. The likelihood of a large flare is very high. Right now it's on the southwestern limb there, which would be your lower right, where we see space weather setting or sunspots setting. It's all about sunspot 38, either 3869 or is that, I think, 3872. So, and we are expecting sunspot number here to decrease over the next day or so because it looks like we have more sunspots setting than we have rising. We are seeing the proton event now ramping down. Finally, it was in place for just about over a week there, but it was above warning levels there for like 5 days. There's the ghost proton flux for the past 7 days. And we did have that Halloween X-ray flare. That was pretty sweet. An X2 class flare late night on Halloween. Anyway, here's some more solar imagery. There is our SDO magnetogram. That is Halloween through today. And there's our intensitygram. Some quite large sunspots here, and we are seeing more sunspots forming in the northern hemisphere. Not too surprising. Yeah, and again, expect plenty of North Pole-oriented coronal holes. So we've barely seen any space weather throughout cycle 25 from coronal holes, and that's going to change. You're going to see some space weather. You're going to see some high-speed coronal hole wind streams, some legit geomagnetic storms that are just from coronal holes. Coronal holes are a super interesting feature of the heliophysics. They're a super interesting feature. They haven't been discovered. They were only discovered in the 1970s. And yeah, you can't see coronal holes from the ground level. So that's part of the reason. Shout out to the ESA Vigil mission. That's going to be pretty sweet. We're going to have a spacecraft out at Lagrangian point 5. Unfortunately, that doesn't launch until planned 2031. So we're like over 6 years out from that. And here are the past about 3 days there. We've zoomed in. We're showing the SDO. That's 304 plus 193 angstroms. 30-minute running difference. 60-minute running difference. And yeah, so a little bit of ejecta is on the way, but not expecting any major geomagnetic storms and not expecting them to last real long either. I think we're going to go all the way through to weather today because we're going to help once again bridge the gap between space weather and Earth weather. Why not, right? It's been a while since we put out a video, so. And oh, I forgot to go to warp. Let's go to warp real quick. You should be able to hear warp speed engage. All right, I'm not sure if you heard anything or not. Oh, it looks like we were at warp the whole time. All right, never mind. We were already at warp. So, all right. So yeah, there's 304 angstroms by itself, ionized helium. And man, wait till you see the filaments. We've got a massive number of massive filaments right now on the closest star. So there's you can see some of them. They're kind of right in the center of the solar disk right now, which is the end of the movie, obviously. Let me get out of the way. And yeah, some really massive, very, very dense filaments, which we'll show you here in a moment. And we'll show you our solar system forecast for the next week. There's where things are located today. And by the way, just to disclaim anybody who believes utter nonsense about space weather, oftentimes people who believe in the electric universe brand will say this, oh, everything's, the planets affect space weather. Not that we know of, not through any physics that is understood, and not through any observational evidence. So maybe, but if so, show a shred of evidence. So yeah, what I'm saying is planetary locations aren't space weather, if you're wondering, or at least not that we know of. Anyway, I'll advance this 1 week. And by the way, those planets are glowing purple because they're in retrograde. So they're moving backwards through Earth's sky perspective. Those planets are moving backwards as pertaining to the background stars. That's all it means. They're in retrograde. It doesn't mean anything funky is going on. Those planets are in retrograde. Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, and Saturn all in retrograde. Outer planets stay in retrograde for a long, long time because the Earth is orbiting more quickly than they are. So, anyway, here's your 1 week forecast. as we will be right at first quarter. Perfect timing to put out a space weather video here at new moon, right? This is what's going on over our head. We're located in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. If you want to make your own star chart, skyandtelescope.org might be a good place to check out. This is not an official endorsement. Skyandtelescope.org probably doesn't know these videos exist for some strange reason. Maybe they don't care about space weather. I don't know. Here's our astronomy photo of the day, and that might look really weird to you. Does that look weird to you, folks? Let us know in the comments if you think that looks weird. It's definitely kind of weird because look on the bright side. When you're looking at Saturn, you're always looking on the bright side. Why should you look on the bright side? Because it's almost time for the political election spam to finally end because of Election Day. But if that looks weird, it's because you can't see that view from Earth ever, because Earth is on the sun side of Saturn. Saturn is always outside Earth, so, you don't really see the dark side of Saturn. That's by the Cassini spacecraft, which took some certainly spectacular images of the great ringed gas giant. So here are the past 24 hours here, and you do see some CME activity there from the LASCO C2. Let's actually cut back to that here for a quick moment. We'll go back. While we're talking CMEs, we'll go back. There you go. So there are the past 3 days. A bunch of missing data in there, unfortunately. But yeah, we showed you the CME impact forecast. So let's just move on. We'll briefly talk flares and filaments. And again, there is Halloween through today. That's first thing on Halloween through about 1700 hours today on November 2nd. There will be an X-class flare there near the beginning of that video. That's the Halloween X2 class solar flare. And we'll also show 94 angstroms. Here it comes. Big flare coming. And there it is. Now, we used to throw meteorology videos right in with the space weather videos, and that's actually what we're going to do today. And let's get to filaments here for a brief moment. Filaments. Look at the size and density of those filaments right in the Earth-facing zone. So if we do see we might see some major CMEs here. So it's a great time to be getting back into space weather here, as we have a potential for major CMEs. Coronal mass ejections, when the sun blasts off a bit of its atmosphere out into space, creating things like the aurora. And power surges right here on terra firma. There's this grayscale imagery. That's from Cerro Tololo, Chile. Again, massive filaments there and some prominences, especially at the southwestern limb, which would be your lower right. Here are the past couple of hours at the GOES 16 SUVI. Again, high likelihood of X-class flares right now, especially down in that southwestern limb. That's where the action's at, and it's pretty close to where some of those filaments are. So, yeah, fingers crossed we might see some sweet space weather kicking off. We're going to just kind of skip through all of that stuff. Quick reminder, folks, that HARP is not weather modification, okay? If you think HARP is weather modification, please consult this diagram. HARP affects a tiny little portion of the ionosphere. As you can see from that imagery there, that's part of the thermosphere. You've got the mesosphere and the stratosphere before anything resembling weather occurs. So just putting out some facts, folks. HARP is not weather modification, and contrails in the troposphere are not geoengineering, just in case you were wondering. Anyway, here's the ionosphere map that we like to show from the Australian Government Bureau of Meteorology, and that indicates very mild space weather conditions, actually. Those big gradients there to high and low frequency, you can see there's some quite high frequency zones there, making it up to 14 megahertz. That is what you see around solar minimum a lot. So space weather is very calm here at the moment. But, again, I would remind you, cosmic ray flux is at an over 30-year low, about a 33-year low right now for cosmic ray flux. So, yeah. The solar system is full of plasma, as you would expect when the sun is putting out a lot of stuff. In other words, the sun can put out a lot of material. It doesn't all have to hit Earth in order to vastly lower cosmic ray flux. It is caused by the solar plasma and the magnetic fields that the solar plasma carries with it. There's the anomalygram, and we are seeing some low-frequency anomalies there, at least as per the past 30 days. But the past 30 days have been pretty active for space weather. So that's anomaly from the 30-day median. And so some of those low-frequency anomalies aren't really that anomalous in the grand scope of things. Anyway, here's the latest imagery. And here are the areas where you can expect to see the possibility of large flares, at the most likely, at least. There you go. Those are the regions which might produce large flares. Quick look at the full disk view here. And let's cross the line between Earth and space weather. So now what we're doing is we're looking at the neutral atmosphere nowcast. Yeah, the neutral atmosphere nowcast. And actually, before we do that, let's cut to that as we close out the space weather section of the video and talk briefly about meteorology. Are you familiar with the correlation between surface temperatures on planet Earth and excess water in the stratosphere? I won't talk about it here, but perhaps on Twitter. Anyway, there is the global neutral atmosphere nowcast. All right? It's showing you oxygen to nitrogen ratio there. Maybe I'll talk about this a little bit more, but this video is getting kind of long here, so I want to blast through some meteorology stuff. Again, make sure you follow us on Twitter if you haven't already done so. Twitter, otherwise known as x.com/Smashomash. I don't mind calling it x.com, but I'd prefer to still call it Twitter since that's an actual brand. So just looking at a little bit of stuff here that we like to show folks occasionally on the channel. This is sea surface temperature anomaly and ocean currents. So if your apocalypse view requires the North Atlantic oscillation to close down, well, unfortunately, that's not going to be causing the apocalypse either, at least not this year, because look, it's still running. The warm water is still making it up to Ireland and Iceland and so on. So, yeah, a bunch of warm water there in the North Atlantic. Sorry, your apocalypse has been canceled. And just a quick reminder, the end is near, so repent now is the oldest grift. The oldest grift. Don't fall for it. It's just ridiculous. So here's a little satellite view for you, for all of you Earth viewing fans. The visible satellite. If your flat Earth pals would like a photograph of the Earth, well, there's one. I'm pretty sure I see curvature. What do you think? I also wanted to show the holes in the ozone layer that people are going to lose their mind about. Just to give you some comparison, where the ozone layer is very thick, you've got about 400 units. And over here, you've got only 186 units. So you can see that on windy.com, by the way. Windy.com will show you the ozone layer. And that's not to be confused with ozone pollution, which stays at the surface. The ozone layer is up in the stratosphere. It affects the amount of UV content you can expect to get at ground level. Here's our weather.gov advisory map, and a bunch of winter weather advisories there, as well as some flood watches and warnings in the Midwest. The Midwest, I don't know, the West, the Eastern West, I don't know, whatever it is. You can see the map, that's why we show it. There's the current lightning situation, the past like 12 hours of lightning. It's been pretty active there in the northern portion of Texas, Oklahoma, and a bit of Nebraska. And here's a forecast model. That's a 72-hour GFS forecast, as we're known to show on the channel. So there you go. That's what's going on, and going to have multiple waves of severe weather there as cold air mixes in with that warm, moist air from the Gulf. And that is the potential for damaging wind, hail, severe thunderstorms, and indeed, twisters, tornadoes. Here's a real-time lightning map. And yeah, there is a bunch of weather happening right now. So let's zoom in here and see where the heaviest weather is. Looks like some relatively minor activity there around Midland. An active cell there at Midland, Texas. There is definitely thunder rolling in at Midland. Here's our radar, U.S. Doppler radar. Here is our visible satellite. Ah, so delightful. Gotta love the visible satellite. And when the radar and the visible satellite don't give you an accurate picture, folks, never fear. Consult the water vapor map, and it will deliver you from nonsense. Again, remember, folks, contrails in the troposphere are not geoengineering. Chemtrails are not a thing. Anyway, just figured I'd give you a little update on the channel. It's not going away, but we're going to start putting out videos about whatever I want. So this is the stuff I normally look at. I figured I'd share. And yeah, expect more content coming soon. Here from the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. Once again, congratulations on realizing the channel exists. We're frankly surprised you have. Don't forget to visit the links below the video. We'll see you soon. But until then, may that solar wind be at your back.